Hello and welcome back to the Preppy podcast. Thank you all so much for listening today. I have another fabulous episode for you. It is with Dana Small. She's an interior designer based in Florida, as well as has a fabulous boutique called Matilda's that you can shop online or in-store in person in Florida, and a line of bedding as well as some clothing collections and collaborations. So I am thrilled to share this interview with Dana. We recorded it a little bit ago and had some technical difficulties at the beginning, so just bear with us. It still is packed full of so many fun stories, such great inspiration, and fabulous advice. But before we get into the episode, a reminder to sign up for Club Preppy. Our packages went out this week and they include a fabulous tote as the gift for this month's members, as well as we are doing a wine tasting and a branding lifestyle workshop. So lots of fun like that for the next couple of months. So sign up at thepreppypodcast.com. All right, so why don't you first let everyone know who you are, where you live, and what you do?
Okay, so I'm Dana Small and I live in Stuart, Florida. I've lived here for the past 25 years. I'm an interior designer. I own a retail shop. We also have an e-com, and I'm the creative director of my own label, which is a small batch collection of bedding and tabletop and dresses. Right now we only have one dress style, but we're growing.
I love that. I always love talking with like a triple threat, like I say, because I'm someone, I wear a lot of hats. Like I have a PR business, I have a podcast, I have a blog, like I do all the things. And I feel like our brains just work nicely together then when I'm chatting with someone like that.
I have a cousin who he was a model and he can sing, he can dance, and he's modeling, and he always calls himself the triple threat. So I had to giggle when you say triple threat because it's just like, I don't consider myself a triple threat by any means. I think I'm just, overextending myself.
No, it's all good. Well, I'm so excited to learn more about you and your businesses today. But let's first start at the beginning. Like, tell me about you as a kid. Were you someone that was always, making clothes for your dolls or decorating your bedroom or entrepreneurial and creative? Like, tell me about your childhood.
Yeah. So first of all, I can't sew a button on anything to save my life. But the second thing you hit on is so true. Like as a child, like I have always moved the pillows around in my house, which would probably annoy my mom. And I love this kind of question because I think in childhood, now that I have kids, you see how your children grow and you see how they develop. But mine was super colorful, very fun. My mom loves interior design herself. And so that was a huge, inspiration for me. And then I've always been creative. I mean, I am a children's illustrator at heart. Like I absolutely love drawing, doodling, whatever. And so that has like literally been born in me. And I think part of that design and being creative, I was also creative in my room. Like I always moved the furniture around. I mean, my mom tells stories about when I was 5, I took the cushions in our sectional and our couch, our house, and I drew all over them like a pattern. It was a white couch and I thought it was boring, which I think is hilarious. So that was like one. And then I think when I was like 8 years old, my parents, typical, I was born in 1970. So your typical like late 70s, early 80s, where you get the new bed set and it was the canopy bed that everybody wanted,
Yeah.
and I didn't like how the person put it in my room. And my parents came in to me at 8 years old, moving the furniture by myself, like it. And my parents were like, what is going on? I was like, I don't like how it's arranged, So apparently that's just, I think somehow it's in you by, at birth for sure. And then there's also just exposure. I think, my parents have great style, grew up in a very contemporary home, that love of color and things like that. I always, I'm wearing a very conservative, of course, very preppy,
Yes.
pinstripe kind of dress today. But as a kid, I definitely loved clothes and, mixing patterns and things like that, which I think resonates with my interiors now, which, you don't recognize those types of things when you're little.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. I mean, it sounds like you definitely had a viewpoint opinion at a young age and an appreciation for design so young. And then your parents kind of nurtured it, it sounds like, which is so
Yeah, I think, when you're little and like I was always a drawer and doodler and
Hmm.
daydreamer, I'd get in trouble in school all the time. It wasn't the girl that got in trouble for talking. I was the girl like not paying attention, like drawing things. And, with design, my parents were, when I was about 11 years old, we're designing custom home. And I didn't realize until that moment how interested I was in interior design. And I think that going to the meetings, I found myself more and more into it and excited about the interior architecture and just everything, the fabrics and all the other things. And I think at that moment, you're like, wow, okay, I'm totally into this. And again, when you're a kid growing up, you don't realize that's your trajectory necessarily
Yep.
as an adult. But um, I wonder if I didn't have that exposure, would I be an interior designer?
Yeah.
Maybe I would have gone into print design or something more illustrative. But that really resonated with me, and I just loved watching my parents create something and be part of that construction.
Hmm.
Like I love being part of a project, and I think that's why in interior design we do this over and over and over, even as stressful as it can be, because we love the end result. We love the start, the planning, the building, and then of course all the panache and the zhuzh at the end, because it's definitely not
Definitely.
as glamorous as it seems.
For sure. So then when it came time for college, where and what did you study? Was it interior design then based on, this experience, or yeah, something completely different?
So, okay, I'm going to be 55. So, interior design, I don't think was on anybody's docket for a
Uh,
major, but I went to
mhm.
Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida,
Yeah.
and which is also where I met my husband.
Oh.
And at that time, it was a liberal, fine arts liberal college kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, I was a fine art major. I had an art history minor, and then they didn't have a business school. They had a night school, but they didn't have like a
Okay.
business major for undergraduate. And so you could do a business minor. So I had like a double minor. So it was fine art and art history. And, of course, my parents were like, what are you going to do with that? I'm like, I have the business. Somehow it will turn into something. And then after that, three of my sorority sisters, right after graduation, so I graduated in 93.
Okay.
One of my girlfriends, her family had a home in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico, and which is one of my most favorite places on earth. And we went there and we lived there for 8 weeks, and we studied at the Instituto, and
Oh.
then we immersed ourselves in like traditional rug weaving and ceramics, and in my when I was first reading things, and margaritas. Like
Uh-huh.
it's like that was it.
I love it. What a fun study experience there then.
And then fast forward, I traveled around the world, and then schooling wise, I didn't pick back up until like 95. So 2 years later, and then I went to a school in Miami for interior design. Then all of a sudden, it was
Okay.
really on people's radars, and you could go to like specialty schools, and get like an associate's degree, and so I did that. And but when I was already doing that, I was already doing interiors, like
Okay.
you know I was already like working part-time doing it. I was doing my own place, I was helping friends out, kind of start like we were all earning a little bit of money, and
Mhm.
painting or wallpapering or whatever. I mean, when you
Yeah.
first started out after college. So but it wasn't like formally trained like girls or boys, whoever goes interior design now. I mean, now it is full-fledged majors, and there's just, I mean, so much more has evolved in that, level of
In
career.
that space. Yeah. No, definitely. I feel like now it's like you can study furniture for it. You can study like even staging. Like there's so many within interior design like levels and degrees.
Yeah, we, we'll get people who will call us for not necessarily interior design. Like they'll be like, "Oh, I saw Dana in a magazine or whatever," or I follow her on Instagram or my friend, and they're like, "Oh, so we'd like to hire you for staging," and I'm like, "Oh, no, that's not me." Like that's
Yeah.
a whole other. I mean, I can judge a house, but I can judge a house that I've been working on, whether
Mhm.
it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, something that I've involved with the client, and obviously having a boutique and a store really helps.
Yeah.
But it is like that I got to know the person. I don't know how. I mean, I guess staging is really for like selling a house and whatever. But
Selling.
it
Yeah.
is funny that you mentioned that, because people do call us, and I'm like, yeah, I don't do
That's
that.
so funny. Oh my gosh, so interesting. So then at what point did you make it official with your interior design business and then the store? Like what was that journey like and like what came first and sort of the thought process before behind launching them?
So I think after I finished school for interior design, which was literally just like an associate's degree, a 2-year thing, we were living in Miami and I was getting little jobs here and there. It was really like referrals. Like I was a huge babysitter and I would like help with the kids' rooms. Then I would, the mom would, I would grow into the living room. So it was just this gradual progression. Then we moved. And now so Stewart is 100 miles north of Miami, very
Mhm.
quiet, especially 25 years ago. And I didn't know how to get involved here because we didn't work. We didn't have jobs yet. I didn't have kids yet. I didn't know how to
Mm.
immerse myself in the community.
Yeah.
So I actually took a design job in Jupiter. It was like the closest place that was really going to capture like what I was into and obviously like a career path. And then after that, I found what was happening is I was the assistant buyer and designer for the owner, the principal designer.
Okay.
And I was being hired by the clients after the fact, for the zhuzhing, like the
Oh.
monogrammed, the applique bedding monogram pillows, the perfect scented candle to go with the guest bedroom, like all these things that like design firms didn't have back then. They weren't
Mhm.
so. I mean, they did, but they just I don't know. They didn't have all that lifestyle thing,
Yeah,
and
the little
also
details they didn't focus on.
yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah,
it was like the pillows and the sofas and all the
the
other things,
drapes, yeah.
the interior architecture part of it. And so I just found, and commuting was a little bit rough. And when I
Mhm.
got pregnant with twins, so I was like, I'm going to open up a shop.
Yeah.
So I did. And I was like, I took all my favorite things from design. Like I took all the wonderful things that my favorite wedding gifts that I got, my favorite baby gifts that I was getting, my favorite design, zhuzhing the giftables for homes, like,
Mhm.
lamps, like lightweight things, like lamps, pillows. And then I just kind of threw it all together and created Matilda's. And
Wow.
so it started out, our whole mantra back then was wedding, living, giving, baby. And so the name doesn't resonate. It could be anything. It could be a bakery, right? So we wanted people to know that we did wedding invitations and we did baby announcements. And it was really heavy on the stationery because there was nowhere to get stationery here except for like Staples. So
You needed something more elevated.
yeah, I was like, okay, wait, we need exactly a little bit more elevated here. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then,
Okay.
that just became my day job. And it was very hard to do interior design. All of a sudden, I was like, wow, I'm a slave to retail and we're open 6 days a week. And, I was eat, sleep, breathing, developing, evolving the store. Websites weren't that busy. I opened in
Mhm.
2007, so they were just evolving. And so slowly as the store got, underway and I hired employees and I had a
Yeah.
little bit more flexibility with a bit of free time, I would get people that come in and be like, "Oh, I love how the store looks. Like, can you help me with wallpaper?" So it kind of slowly evolved. And then I knew I wouldn't do anything really heavily. So I picked up a house here or there,
Mhm.
every year. And then having twins, I was going to be an empty nester at the same time. So when they
Mm.
graduated, it was like, okay, I really, I started to really accept bigger jobs too in high school, like saying, I'm going to get into this when my kids, because it's hard. High school's
Yeah.
stressful. Like,
Oh,
it's,
yes. I would always forget my homework in high school, and my mom always jokes that she'd, like, always be visiting the school, dropping off stuff I'd forget, like, every day.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a few. Yeah, I have a child that was like that. But it was like I also realized being an empty nester at the same time. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
having one child. You just like you're not going to have that, and it's so insane and intense and lovely too, and
Yeah.
doing all those things that I was like, okay, I need to. What am I going to do? Because the store was kind of running itself. I have like an
Okay.
amazing team. I have people who've been there 18 years, 15 years, 10 years,
Wow.
like small town. And I needed more. I needed, the store is creative. I can be creative when it comes to merchandising and things like that,
Mhm.
but I am a creative director. My blood is, creativity. So I have to be really have to be doing something. And so I was like, well, and who am I going to hire? Because I've got my shop girls,
Yeah.
and so I have my sister-in-law and one of my friends were empty nesters like right at the same time, and they were like, oh my God, we can't sit at home. Like, what are we going to do? And I was like, perfect, you know. So that's kind of how it evolved, and now we're here. And you
I
know, so
love
we
that.
started like in 21, like, you know, and it's 25 and it's going
Yep.
strong. And yeah.
Well, I think what you said there is like you're a creative director because I live outside of Philadelphia and I think I found you like I've been following you on Instagram, the store for years, and I think what comes across on the Instagram is how you merchandise things, how you style things. And so can you tell a little bit then about marketing the store? How you got the word out for the store and attract new customers, all of that. Like, what's kind of been the best marketing, would you say?
So, you know, that's such a good question for us because we actually still rely a lot on magazines. And I know that sounds crazy to a younger, you know, crowd, but we really, obviously you have to be social, right? You have to
Mhm.
be on every, I mean, well, we're on like Instagram and Facebook, but
Yeah.
I did it myself at the beginning and then it was so overwhelming. Like I couldn't get enough pictures. And I always say this, I'm a perfectionist to a fault. And when I mean
Mhm.
that, it's like, I can take 50 pictures of something and not find and not like it. And I was like, that's wasting everybody's time. Um, so I hired someone very quickly. I was, you know, Instagram when it first started too, it wasn't really for businesses. It was
Yeah.
like, it was personal. Like it was
Mhm.
Facebook. I was on Facebook because our nanny was going to University of Tennessee and she was like, hey, you want to see what I'm doing? You know, and we were like, this is so weird. Like, you know, and then you know obviously Instagram and all these other things evolved, but so I realized that like my customer base is not necessarily on Instagram. They are, I mean,
Mm.
I don't know how long's
Mhm.
Instagram been around, 12 years, 15 years, I kind of lost track of
Yeah.
time, but you know, so we've evolved with it as it's evolved, and once it got a business it was like, okay, the rest of the world is putting their business on here, you know. And
Yeah.
I also, you know, I have my own and I've got the store, and the store obviously is driven 100% for the consumer and, you know,
Mm.
selling you all the products and wonderful things we have. My own is more of my lifestyle and how do I incorporate Matilda's products into my life and my life into what I buy for the store.
Yep.
Um, but back to the magazine comment. So we've been advertising in our local Stewart magazine for
Mhm.
18 years, and it was like a 7 month publication, and now it's grown like all year. We still have people that walk in off the street and they're carrying the magazine, or they come in and they're like, I was at the dentist office and I saw your ad in, you know, in the magazine and I brought
Wow.
it in because I want to buy this dress, you know, and which is kind of like unheard of. Like we giggle about it and I love it. Cause I always tell my girls, my shop girls, you
Mhm.
know, every day we need someone coming in and telling us they've never been here before or they just
Mm.
found us in a magazine. You know, we're still catering to an older crowd.
Yeah.
Now we have everything. I mean, my store's been open for 18 years. You know, we have girls where we did their 8th grade graduation. We then did their Sweet 16 party invitation. We did their high school graduation, their college graduation, their graduate school graduation,
Oh
their
my gosh.
engagement, you know, parties, their wedding, their baby, we bought a new house. Like you're talking 18 years of, if you start out with that one 8th grader and you had 18 years to her life,
Mhm.
like, you know, she and her mom too, you know, the family. And so we now are selling to that girl because she's 30,
Yeah.
right?
And she's grown up
And
with you.
right. But, you know, when I opened the store, I was 37 and now I'm going to be 55. And so I was the 37-year-old selling to the 55 to 75. Now I'm
Mhm.
55 selling to like the 35 to 95. I mean, we have customers
Wow.
that are like 90 years old. Like we have a
Yeah.
lady that drives her car, you know, buys her favorite candle and things like that. So now my swing of customers is much larger, but we still cater to that person that reads the magazine, you know,
Wow.
and
I love
digitally.
that. Yeah, and I think that's so important because especially with the algorithm these days, like Instagram can be so hard. And I think a lot of people put all their eggs in one basket when it comes to social media. And there's still so many other ways, whether it's, magazines or showing up at places and having trunk shows, or doing something like totally creative. One of our local stores here, they hosted a dinner where they had like Jane Wynn, the jewelry designer, come and do like made the customers feel like so special that they got invited to this like private dinner. Like I just think there's so many different ways to market and get creative, right?
Oh yeah. And I mean, you're right. Instagram is so difficult with the algorithm. And,
Mhm.
I am like 55 and I joke all the time at house. I'm like, I tell my husband, we need to have another baby and we need to get another puppy because that's what gets traction. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, no. So yeah, that's not funny. And he's not on Instagram or any social media. So
Yeah.
he doesn't get it. He thinks we're all crazy, but
Yeah.
it is the algorithm. I mean, you work so hard and can be so frustrating, and you just have to keep pushing through and pushing through and pushing through. And I love the local magazine, and they're great too because we've been, I'm involved in the community and we've been advertising with them for so long. It's nice they throw a few editorials here. And it you now get the older clients who are following you on Facebook, following you on Instagram.
Yeah.
But with my brand, you brought up trunk shows and being
Mhm.
inventive and how you can have a launch party and do all these things. So because the collection that I've created, the hand block collection, we now don't just have one dress and one tablecloth that's easy to sell in the store or sell to my friends and take to like a summer fair or something.
Mhm.
Now we have to do the trunk show and the pop-up and
Yeah.
things. So but it is great. And my brand collection manager, she is like, we need to get you physically at these
Out
places
there.
because people want to meet you. And maybe, like you
Mhm.
said, they followed you for years or they shopped
Mhm.
in the store for 18 years, and now I'm not there on a daily basis. And so they want to
Yep.
see you because, you don't just walk into people's interior design business. We're meeting with clients or reps or,
Yep.
or I'm on the job site. So we're starting that. Like we have, um, funny enough, we have our anniversary, 18th anniversary coming up for Matilda's, and we're advertising a Dana Small Designs pop-up, which is funny because I own Matilda's, but
Yeah.
there are so many people that have shopped there in the last 5 years that, yeah, again, have never met me or don't know me,
Mhm.
or they don't really know the extent of what we're making because maybe they aren't on social media or
Yep.
they're just getting, they don't, I don't want to look at another e-blast either. Of course, that is how we, get people's attention. But
Yep.
so we have a lot, and of course I have an amazing team. So I do, we just started our website a couple years ago, and I
Okay.
have a whole team that does nothing but that. My shop girls, the Matilda shop girls in the brick and mortar, it is, I mean, they, every day you walk in and they are like helping you and they're advertising and they're just pushing the narrative of what we sell, what's new, what events we have. Then you've got the
Yep.
e-com who they're the e-blasting and they're real, and then the marketing, and they're putting it all together in our website, which is beautiful. And then we have our social girl, you know and you don't start with that. I started with me, and then you
Yep.
grow and you grow and you grow. And it's amazing how I can look back and be like, wow, we have I have 15 employees. And
Wow,
and that's
that's
a lot.
impressive.
It's
Yeah,
And you get a little
that
nervous
is a
as
lot.
you evolve and you grow because you're like, oh my God, can I afford this person? Or do I have enough work for them? And,
Mhm.
somebody once told me, like, if you're asking yourself that question, you have enough work. And
Yeah,
worst case, you find out that you
it
don't.
doesn't work
So
out. Yep.
yeah, but it just kind of evolves. And, like I said, all of a sudden you wake up and it's like, oh, I've had this store for 18 years and we've been hardcore on the design business for the last, now 5 years. So
So, speaking of design, you're known for traditional coastal with layers of texture and colors. How did you narrow in on that? And any advice on achieving whether people want to get that style for their home, or maybe just advice in general of like figuring out how to find your style?
yeah, I think interior design can be a little bit like how you find your style, like fashion, like your
Mhm.
wardrobe. I think we all we're influenced by our friends way before influencers existed, right? We're influenced by what you wear, I wear, your mom, and so you try things, right? So interiors are a little bit like that. You try a few things and you see which one sticks, right? Um, I did not grow up in like what I would consider a traditional um, decorated home. Like my
Mhm.
parents are, it was more of a contemporary setting, like very bold fabrics and patterns, geometric patterns, lots and lots of texture. We had grass cloth everywhere in our
Yeah.
house in the middle of Ohio, and we had foiled wallpaper. I mean, we had really fun things that
Mhm.
my neighborhood friends did not have. They had very traditional, lots of woodwork, but my parents, I don't really know where that exposure came from except for them for
Mhm.
traveling. My
Mhm.
dad did grow up going, actually traveling to Italy and seeing, having exposure there, but going to California a lot. And so they loved Florida. So they loved this bright and cheery and, more like mid-century modern.
Mhm.
Um, and so that, again, I think but what you grow up with obviously influences where
Influences.
you show up. But
Yeah.
I also think my own style really started after college, and I traveled around the world. And for like 6 months, I lived in Mexico in San Miguel. So that's a whole heavy, ornate Mexican culture,
Yeah.
which I loved. The colors are amazing. And then I traveled all around the world. And I think all these different places that I went, I was definitely influenced. I'm fascinated by like what I call hotel living. Like I
Mm.
always, after I came back, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to live in a hotel and get room service and maid service? And my parents were like, yeah, it's kind of like living here. I was like, okay, I get it. Enough said. But hotels are simplistic, but you can have your hotels in the middle of Indonesia that everything there is so focused on the ornate woodworking and things like that nature. Then you can be in London where because it's dreary outside all the time, you've got pops of color and layers of patterns and stuff.
Mhm.
So as I traveled around the world, I just kind of took that all in, and then I ended up living after I finished. I ended up moving to the Bahamas, and
Okay.
I have definitely always wanted to live where the sun shines, 365. And I was like, I am not going to live in Ohio my whole life. And I want somewhere beachy and warm and palm trees and seashells. And so that also, you live there, you live very simple on an island. And in an island, they don't have everything. We would have to fly to Miami and shove it in a bag
Yeah.
and, one pillow at a time. There was no Bed Bath and Beyond where I lived.
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden you go from traveling around the world and you see all these things, and growing up in Ohio and even a small town, we still had everything kind of at our fingertips. On an island, you don't. And then all of a sudden it forces you into like your favorite things.
Mm.
And I think color wise, that was a huge influence. Definitely growing up with the color palette my parents had, definitely island style. So again, I think it evolves. And I always try to tell people like if someone hires us and they don't know which, they don't know how to get there, they might show us pictures, thank God for Pinterest and all this. But
Yeah.
I always like, let's take where is the house? Like, if we're starting from scratch, it's like, okay, this is a Florida home. Then I really try to encourage people, designing for Florida environment, like
Mm.
blues and greens and naturals. They obviously come so easily here, pops of yellows and oranges, things like that. Like look at your surroundings and kind of let the outdoors come in.
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing a house up north, and depending on if it's a seasonal home, then again, we can go to like a summer color palette. So I always take into consideration the home, the architecture, and if it's a new build, then we're really incorporating depending on the style of the home. But I think, one of the things I encourage people is to kind of, again, find what resonates with them.
Mhm.
And, sometimes we get a client that shows up and she's wearing black pants and a crisp white shirt and very simple jewelry. I know that person already. I don't think she wants like these crazy colors
Yeah.
and all doodads. It's pretty easy. I think we kind of dress like, again, I always say fashion is a little bit reflective of interior or vice versa. So I don't even know if
Definitely.
I got anywhere near answer your question.
No, you did.
I it's not an easy pinpointed thing, and I
Yeah.
think all designers we evolve.
Yes.
I've got designers that I've been following for years, and I think we all evolve and we keep growing, and we also
Mhm.
get more daring on certain things. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I didn't do before. But there are definitely things that I was like, oh, everyone's like, oh, I would never do that, and then a year later you're like, oh, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's like with any business, you become more comfortable, which then I think allows you to get a little bit more daring or like try new things and get adventurous,
yeah, I
right?
think it's confidence, comfort.
Hmm.
Yeah, comfort, confidence, having the confidence to execute something or seeing it done enough. And I think that's why Instagram and Pinterest are such great tools, is because you can look and find, I mean, you could put, I don't know, rattan brass bar, and you'll get all these images. And one, you're not alone if the only person Googling that. And second of all, you see all these options and different interpretations, and then you can kind of
Did
gravitate
we
towards
freeze
that
again?
and figure out how to get there,
Let's
right, for
see.
yourself, or if you want to do it at all.
So then, I have to say the bedding is beautiful. I got to see it at my friend Maggie, Margaret of York's home in Florida, and it looks so, so beautiful. So I think it's a great extension of your businesses. And then, I'm curious if you could design a home for anyone or have your products, like your bedding, in anyone's home or your dresses on a certain person, like who would be your dream customer for any of that?
Ooh, wow. Well, I think because interior design is like so in my soul, not so much the fashion, but I think my dream would not necessarily to be in anyone's home, but I would love to be in a hotel. Like, you know,
Oh,
my dream project would be to do a boutique hotel in my like three favorite places in the world, which are San Miguel de Allende, Harbor Island, or like London and Paris are tied for third. But, I would love to do a boutique hotel. That would be a dream.
hmm,
And I think having my own product in there would be amazing. Like having our bedding part of it, part of that simple, like I was saying, traveling and these global, inspirations and notes of different patterns and things that I've seen and learned along the way. And
yeah.
from Marrakesh to Thailand to India. I actually haven't been to India yet, but just what we're working with in the block print. So
Yes.
I that would be a dream.
That would be amazing. I mean, I could totally see it. Um,
I would love it. Yeah, that would be amazing. So I'm hoping that saying it out like three times, manifesting it.
definitely. Now, since this is the Preppy podcast, I always ask everyone, what does Preppy mean to you? So, how would you describe Preppy?
Well, this is so funny. I Googled it first because I
Yeah.
was like, I'm 55 and I feel like preppy was so 80s.
Uh-huh.
And because that's what I think about. And I was like laughing at, all the different definitions you get. But, you know, I go back to the 80s. I was born in 1970, and in the 80s, it was all about the penny loafers and the popped collars and the pink
Yeah.
and green combo, or that Kelly green and navy blue, the tree torns, the Izods, like that. I mean, I was literally voted
Yeah.
like most preppy in my eighth grade yearbook, which
Oh
I
my
just
gosh.
think is hilarious. But when you Google it, it's kind of like it kind of sounds really snobby, like it's just like I was like, oh my god. But I there's like, there's like the Urban Dictionary, and then there's the AI version, and then the Google and, Wikipedia, whatever. You have all these things. But I actually feel that, for preppy, I definitely think I'm preppy. I mean, I love bright colors. And I think of preppy as a 55-year-old, as being, very classic, very neat. I think that's, resonates with preppy no matter what definition. And I'm a total blazer and pop the collar kind of gal. Like that's preppy to me.
Yeah.
I don't want, to bring in the whole like elite, prep school, boarding school. I did that. But, I was like, oh, I don't like the sound of that part. But like the tennis racket, like who doesn't think of something, preppy, like grabbing a tennis racket, and I'm a tennis player. So,
Yeah.
but I guess that's what it means to me.
That's such a good answer. No, that's perfect. I think that wraps it up great. So, what's next for you? And then can you also share, social media, website, that sort of thing so that people can follow along and shop?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I so appreciate it. What's next? I think, for us, we have a lot of projects that we've done in the last 4 years that, with design, you have to get them photographed. That is a big undertaking. That's a big goal for 2026. We've got to get, our jobs photographed and share those and get them out on social.
Mhm.
And I think just for like the bedding and the dresses, as I mentioned, we've been developing a collection for the last 6 months, and some of it will come to fruition in a couple of weeks. We have another drop so we did a collaboration with SC Block Prints. That was a huge
Okay.
thing that we started doing last year. We had our first launch this past September, and we just got all of our new inventory yesterday for our second drop. So
Ooh.
we'll be launching that in 2 weeks. So that's a big one. And then, we have these things that are developing just in our own collection. And what was the second thing you asked me?
Um,
Oh, how to
Website,
push.
social
Oh,
media.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, social media. Okay, so for the store, we are Matilda's Lifestyle. We're at Matilda's Lifestyle for Instagram and Facebook. And we also have our own e-com, which is matildaslifestyle.com. And then for me personally, I have at Dana Small Designs for Instagram and Facebook, and then our website for my interior design business and our own product. And any collabs that we do are exclusive to Dana Small Designs. It's danasmalldesigns.com. So pretty basic, cut and dry.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know. It is
Well,
funny. Some people are like, they'll be like, Dana Smell. And I'm like, no, it's not Dana Smell. Dana Smells. That's what
yeah,
my brother says. Dana Smells instead of Dana Smell.
that's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Well, Dana, I had the best time talking with you, learning more about you and your businesses.
Thank you. This was such a treat for me. You're my first podcast,
Ooh.
so I just loved it. I mean, I felt, I watched podcasts. Of course, mine are in the serial killer, murder mystery type of genre, but I loved it. And it was so funny. The girls were like, "Are you nervous?" I was like, "Kind of nervous." And one girl was like, "Take that nervousness and channel it into excitement." And I was like, "I am excited because I've never done that." And I think when with any type of Q&A, when they're asking questions about yourself, it's pretty easy to answer.
Yeah.
You're not really going to get anything wrong, but this is also a way. I so appreciate you taking the time to do this, because this is a way that we really need to get my name out there, my
Yeah.
product out there. And you can have so many followers on Instagram, but that algorithm can kill you on a daily basis. There's only so many people that shop in my little store in my little town,
Mhm.
and some of those people don't even know we have a website. So I am so grateful for this opportunity. And I can't wait to hear it and see it.
Yeah. No, it's going to be great. Thank you so much for listening to the Preppy Podcast. I hope this put a little prep in your step for the day. Please subscribe, rate, and review on wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow along with @the Preppy Podcast on social media.